What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Welcome back to another edition of the Transfer View. And the first bid is in. The first bid is in from Manchester United for Brentford forward Bryan Mbeumo. Now, interestingly, there might be a little bit of discrepancy when it comes to the two parties involved here, Manchester United and Brentford, as to how much they're willing to pay, how much they want to pay, and how much one club, specifically Brentford, are looking for. The first bid of £45 million plus £10 million in add-ons has gone in, but Brentford, seemingly, they're looking for something more. They're maybe looking for something more in line with 60 million, maybe even as much as 70 million pounds in line, the 60, with what Manchester United paid for Matheus Cunha. Are they looking for a similar amount for their striker? Of course, they're maybe in a more favourable position. The Cunha one was a release clause. The Mbeumo one is actually, he's got a year left on his contract, plus an option of an extra 12 months. So they're secure. So maybe Brentford feel like they've got leverage in this. The question is, what is a fair price? What is a fair price for the player that scored 20 goals in the Premier League last season? A breakthrough season and certainly on the rise, ready to make the next step up. And he's already publicly said, well, at least through all of the journalists, that he only wants Manchester United. That's the only club he wants. He's turned down Arsenal. He's turned down Spurs. He's turned down Newcastle. He only wants Old Trafford. Because of that, does it make it easier for Manchester United to negotiate with Brentford? What is the actual final price going to be? What is a fair price? Let me know your thoughts about it as always. This is the Transfer View. We're going to get into a lot this morning. I can already see people in the chat. I can already see people getting involved. We've already got over 600 people watching, which is fantastic. Let's get to a quick 100 likes if you haven't already. I tell you what, let's get this ready. There you go. There you go. With what you call it in the thingy. With 5 likes away from 100 likes. If you haven't already, click that like button and be sure to subscribe. As you can see in the top right-hand corner there, what's that? About 350-ish? 350 away from 195,000. It's already been a crazy week. Crazy week. Cunha through the door, signed. It's already been Mbeumo, he wants Manchester United. Now a bid's gone in. Bruno Fernandes, our captain, he is staying, turning down an offer, a generational wealth offer from Al Hilal. That's already happened this week. And just on this show, we're not only going to be talking about Bryan Mbeumo and the first bid going in, £55 million, 45 plus 10, and how much, you know, Brentford want and how much Manchester United are willing to pay. We're also going to be talking about the shake-up, yet another shake-up in terms of the executive side of Manchester United. So Dave Brailsford taking a step back, Sir Jim Ratcliffe shaking things up, and we've got to talk about the ascension of Jason Wilcox, the rise after only being in Manchester United for about a year, going from technical director to director of football. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Are you worried? Is it yet another mistake by Ineos? We're going to be talking about it all this morning. So if you haven't already, click that like button. Be sure to subscribe. And as Fabsy says right there in the chat, and the window only just starting. Only just starting. But we're not moving quick enough, folks. Remember, we're not moving quick enough. At least the players don't think that. Allegedly, you know, according to sources on the ground, that's, you know, on the same ground, you're getting this. Can you get there? It's like when you do a wine test. You know what I mean? I'm getting hints of bullshit. Yes, I'm getting hints of bullshit on that one. Just on that one, strong notes of it. The high tastes like bullshit. Tastes like bullshit, that one. So yes, the window's just started, and the window will actually be closing in 5 days because, of course, it's this short part of the window, isn't it? And then opens, I think, was it like, I don't know, a week after, a couple of weeks after. It's an odd one. It's an odd one. But yes, so it's going to be a very, very busy and action-packed summer. No doubt about it, isn't it? It's going to be an action-packed summer. Right. Let's get into the big news last night. You know, we've spoken the last few days, haven't we, about, you know, David Ornstein dropping the Ornstein bomber. Then it goes back to, of course, Fabrizio dropping an exclusive about Bruno Fernandes staying. Yeah. You know, they were going back and forth. Well, David Ornstein, he's done it again. Where's my lead judges thing? He's done it again. There you go.
He's done it again.
You know, he's done it again, right? With Bryan Mbeumo, the first bid going in last night. David Ornstein reported indeed that the first bid has gone in for the Brentford forward, writing for The Athletic, saying Manchester United have submitted an opening offer to sign Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford. And actually, I think I should probably work on my pronunciation because I did see those videos yesterday. Did you see the videos going around on social media, the pronunciation videos? It's Brian, and then I don't even think they use the M. I think it's just Bumo. So Bryan Bumo. It kind of, the N and M, I guess, kind of goes together. Bryan and Bumo. It's how much emphasis you put on the N, but it's Bryan Bumo from Brentford. The proposal values Bumo at £45 million plus £10 million in add-ons, first add-ons of the window, folks, which is some way below the kind of fee it will take for Brentford to consider selling their Cameroon international forward. It continues, Ornstein continues by writing, but talks are ongoing as United work to reach an agreement for a player targeted by head coach Ruben Amorim to strengthen his attacking unit. Mbeumo, 25, has a year left on his contract at the GTEC Community Stadium, plus an option to extend for 12 months, but is keen on moving to Old Trafford if the clubs can strike a compromise. A bit more on this came from Fabrizio Romano. We got an as per. It says Manchester United have submitted £45 million plus £10 million in add-ons for a proposal for Bryan Mbeumo. Negotiations started, as David Ornstein reports. Brentford asked for a fee close to what Man United paid for Cunha, starting from £70 million with a possibility to negotiate. 70 million quid, 70 million pounds.
Now go home and smoke some more crack.
Manchester United are not going to pay £70 million for Bryan Mbeumo. That's not going to happen, is it? That's not going to happen. That might be the opening posture. That might be the opening position for Brentford to hopefully negotiate from. But as is always the case with these transfers, and I can understand why maybe United fans and football fans in general kind of roll their eyes when we hear this kind of stuff, because the reality is one starts here. Where are they going to meet? In the middle. They'll always meet in the middle somewhere, right? And the place in the middle is around 60, maybe a little bit below, but it's around that ballpark, maybe 55 plus 5. It's going to be around that part, isn't it? So it's just opening positions, really, isn't it? Ben Jacobs reporting on this as well, saying Manchester United have made an opening offer of £45 million plus £10 million to Brentford for Bryan Mbeumo, as David Ornstein called. It's below Brentford's valuation, but talks continue. Brentford want at least £50 million guaranteed and are pointing to the £62.5 million paid for Matheus Cunha as a comparable value. Manchester United is still optimistic of finalising an agreement, knowing that Mbeumo is keen on the move and a second bid is expected. There has also been a sense that the add-ons are going to prove really important if a deal can be struck quickly. Manchester United are inclined to trigger extras with Champions League, but Brentford wants simpler individual performance criteria. Talks will continue today, that being Thursday, KG's favourite day of the week, Thursday. So, I mean, I think, to be fair, Ben Jacobs has actually laid it out really, really well there, saying Brentford want at least £50 million guaranteed. United, when I saw that offer go in yesterday and the reports coming out that bid had gone in, 45 plus 5, I did think in terms of the initial fee, I thought I was probably on the low side. And Man United know what they're doing on that one, because it's always been quoted, hasn't it? It's always been quoted for the last... Well, really, the last sort of 2 weeks when we've been linked to Mbeumo, I'll get there in the end. But, for the last few weeks, the price that's been going around, even before it was like, he only wants Manchester United, all of the clubs, Newcastle, Spurs, Arsenal, it was always reported it was going to be around 55 to sort of 60 million, or between 50 and 60 million. That was always going to be the sort of ballpark range of it. Now, when I did see the offer going yesterday, it was 45. I thought, that's United, they're being on the low side. But that's what they've done with a lot of their transfers, isn't it? That's what they've done with a lot of their transfers over the last couple of years, which is they start off low just to get into... Flex always calls it that Man United have to get into like these weird sort of I'm not going to do phases because that's like a running joke on social media, isn't it? What phase is this person in? But United, they don't just sort of go in, this is the fee, unless it's a release clause, like with Cunha or like with Joshua Zirkzee, where the price is already out there, so they know exactly what they've got to pay. And it's just, and if anything, then they start getting into sort of the finer details of how are they going to activate the release clause, how many installments are they going to pay it over? A bit like the Cunha thing where it's like, well, no, in the contract it says it has to be over 3 installments. United asked for 5. No, it's free. Okay, no problem. That's it. This one, there is no release clause, so there's a bit more room for negotiation, isn't there? So start off with 45 plus 10, gets to 55. Brentford like, well, we want at least 50 up front. So that goes into, all right, United's next offer is probably 50 million up front. Maybe, again, it might still be £10 million in add-ons. And like Ben Jacobs is also saying, what do those add-ons then consist of? That'll be the finer things. I think United will happily go up to 50 million initially. And then it would just be, okay, those remaining add-ons, that sort of £10 million-ish, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be if Manchester United get Champions League football? And Brentford, rightfully so, will say, look, you haven't had Champions League football for 2 seasons. That's not a guarantee. We would prefer it to be based on his performance because we trust his performance. We know him. We don't know you. Well, maybe we do know you. That's the problem. We trust him to hit these performance-based add-ons quicker than you getting into the Champions League. So X amount of appearances, then you pay us this. X amount of goals, then you pay us this. Maybe a little bit based on trophies and maybe a little bit based on getting into the Champions League, but the bulk of it, we're looking for, these performance-based things from him, individual performances. So that might be the thing that takes a little bit of time here. But the other part is, like I kind of spoke about in the intro, I mean, Brentford, and I can understand, there was a report a couple of days ago that Brentford maybe weren't necessarily happy with the story coming out that he had effectively said to all of these other clubs, Spurs, Newcastle, Arsenal, I'm not interested. I don't want to go anywhere else. I only want to go to Manchester United. That's the only place I want to go. And I do think there is some weight in that story because it's taken away a lot of their leverage, hasn't it? It's taken away a lot of their leverage and a lot of their negotiating power. The only real leverage they've got now is that while technically he doesn't have 1 year left on his contract, technically it's 2. They've got the extra 12 months that they could trigger on. So it's not like they have to sell this summer. They could hold out till next summer if they wanted to. That's the only leverage they've got. They don't have the leverage of, well, if you don't, give us what we want, we'll sell him to Newcastle. And United would then go, well, look, he doesn't want to go there. We know he only wants to sign for us. That's it. So for that reason, I'm not concerned about, the little bits of the reports that say Brentford, it's firmly far away. And like the Fabrizio Romano report where it says, it's 7. They're looking for £70 million. That's what they're looking for. Brentford, no, they're not going to get £70 million for Mbeumo. They know they're not going to get that. They know because they would not get that from all of those other clubs that I just mentioned. From your Spurses, from your Arsenals, from your Newcastles, they wouldn't get £70 million for him. They just wouldn't. And they shouldn't get it from Manchester United either. The real price is going to be probably close to the same sort of range as the Cunha one, probably a little bit less. So I think it'll end up as 55, maybe plus £10 million in add-ons. Maybe they might go to as high as £15 million in add-ons, and the extra 5 are really difficult ones to get to. Maybe something like that. And one of those ones that you then hear the report of, well, that extra 5, Manchester United would be more than happy to pay that 5 if they achieve them, because that would mean they're winning the Champions League, or that would mean they're getting to a European final, or that would mean this, that would mean that. So I think that this is now, we're now, I hate the word, because as Man United fans, we've heard it so much over the last however many years, process. But we're now into this back and forth protest where I think this one will probably get, honestly, a here we go. the positive thing for United now is they are, as much as maybe reports would say they're not, they are moving fairly quickly. There is clearly a desire within Manchester United to get these deals, the ones that they don't have to rely on outgoings, these sales. There's clearly a desire to get these deals done quickly, as we've seen with Cunha, and now as we're seeing with Mbeumo. So we've got 5 days left of this window. I wouldn't be totally shocked if there's an announcement from Manchester United within the next 5 days that it is done. I wouldn't be totally shocked. Remember, again, they're just doing announcements at the moment. This isn't like hold up the shirt arriving at Carrington or anything like that. This is make an announcement, an agreement in principle, subject to work visa and registrations and all that kind of stuff. So I still say within the next 5 days, something like that. I think maybe they had one announcement on the opening day of the window with Cunha. Maybe they'll want to do one on the closing day of this first part of the window. Maybe that's what they'll go with, because Man United like those kind of specific days, don't they? So I'm not concerned about that. If anything, I'm glad that things are moving quickly. It was early yesterday, and Flex did the video on this last night on Flex's View. Be sure to check that out. That the club to club. I mean, look how quickly this one is moving. Monday, so that's 3 days ago. Late Monday, it was Mbeumo only wants United. Then it took 48 hours to be like club to club talks have begun. That was early yesterday. Club to club talks have begun. Late yesterday, it's a first bid has got in, 45 plus 10, 55 total. That's far off what they're looking for. Negotiations are going to continue today. I would go as far to suggest that probably at some point today, we'll hear about a second bid going in, which will also be, it'll be like, oh, it's closer, but there's still some way to go. And then maybe Friday, end of the week, we hear that, the third bid's gone in, and that's the one they're happy with. Then you get the Fabrizio, here we go, maybe on, I don't know, Saturday, and then Sunday, maybe get an announcement or something. I think that's the timeline that this one will go with. I think is most likely. Could be wrong, but I think I'm not in any concern that this one's in jeopardy whatsoever. This is positive steps. Terence with the first super chat of the morning. Big up to you. Good morning, Terence. Says, what I hate the most is the media, not just British, overhyping a player. Player scored X wonder goal against Team Y. X will be a future United star. Well, look. And big up Terence. Terence always gets involved in these morning shows, always putting the super chats in. Really appreciate all of the support, as always, mate. When it comes to the media, what we have seen, it's never a shock. So I don't think we should pretend that it is a shock. But they do go into overdrive in transfer season. Not so much, I suppose, with the sort of linked to players. That hasn't been super in overdrive so far, this transfer window. It's only 5 days old. But you remember in Ten Hag's first season where it was like, it felt every single player you could possibly think of was just getting thrown against the wall, linked to Manchester United. And then sometimes they'd be linked to United for like an hour. And then the next hour, a deal would be agreed for them to go somewhere else. And they would be a Manchester United linked player in the headline. You go, you've only just done that to sort of prep for the headline you're going to be writing later on. That's not been the case this time around. But what we have seen, and the Mbeumo one's a great example of this, is just the best example of this, is that we are damned if we do, and we are damned if we don't. Not just in terms of our own fans, but everyone. I saw, was it Simon Jordan on TalkSport, was it yesterday or the day before, saying, oh, look at the state of Manchester United. They're going after players from Brentford. And I just thought, you just can't stop, can you? You just can't stop. None of them can. They just, it for whatever reason, it eats them alive. Eats them alive that Manchester United can still get players. They would rather we go through a window and we don't sign anyone. And then, by the way, if we didn't sign anyone, they would then, one, criticize us for not signing anyone, but then they would try and spin it as, yeah, but look how much money you've spent on your squad. This is Manchester United we're talking about. These players are international players. This is Manchester United we're talking about. At the same time, I look at Man United signing Cunha from Wolves, Premier League proven, a really good signing, a fantastic first signing of the window. I look at Manchester City also signing a player from Wolves, Aït-Nouri, and then I hear, City rebuild, mate. City rebuild. Look at that. And they're getting Reinders and they're getting Cherky. City shrewd. Very, very shrewd. Shrewd bit of business, that. Shrewd business. Or you get Liverpool. They're signing a player from Bournemouth in Kirkez. I tell you what. It's a good signing, that. Done well in the Premier League. He's ready for the step up. Oh, yeah. Good business. Smart business. Oh, I get it. It's a good bit of business, shrewd business. They're ready for the step up when they're going to any other club than Manchester United. But if we sign a player from the Premier League who's done well in the Premier League, like Cunha, like Mbeumo, and they're going to take the next step up, look at the desperation. Look at the desperation from Manchester United. They're buying from mid-table clubs. We're fucking 15th. What even are we anyway? What even are we? You know? So yeah, it's just nonsense. It's nonsense. And with the discussion about his wages, saying, oh, you're only getting him because you're going to pay big wages. That's the only real reason you're getting him. Do we know that that's for a fact? Do we? You know, it's I remember with because do you remember when we signed Dorgu in January? And when we signed Patrick Dorgu in January, this was a big eye opener for me. When we were signing Dorgu in January, about a day before the actual fee came out for him, there were all of these reports that Man United were going to be paying like £45 million, or it was going to be like 40 million, 45 million. Look at this. Look at this again. Man United massively overpaying for someone from Lecce, from Lecce, from Serie A, 40 million, 45 million. That's what it is. That's what it is. And then we signed him and it went, actually, it's around sort of 25 million pounds ish, and about sort of 4 million pounds in add-ons is what it is. So actually it's an initial 25. It wasn't not even as high as 30. So I don't really know where the 45 million came from. Because it's just easy. And the reason it's easy is because we have made those mistakes in the past. In the same, and again, that's why they'll do you're signing from Wolves, signing from Brentford, or it's not going to work out. Yeah, but because obviously our track record's terrible. But also that doesn't get in the way of the truth that it's still a good signing. So yeah, when it comes to the wages of Mbeumo, I'm sure it'll probably be in line with a lot of the signings that we've already made over the last 12 months. Again, I look at, and even the websites, I mean, I joke and talk about capology, but even there, said to be maybe not totally accurate. For the longest time, Jadon Sancho's contract at Manchester United was 325, 300, and then we turned to find out it's actually around sort of 250. So we never really know. These are all kind of rumor and innuendo. But the highest wage of a player that was signed last summer was 195,000, and that was De Ligt. Then you go down, you look at Mazraoui, the second highest player in terms of salary that was signed last summer. That was Mazraoui, 135,000. Ugarte was 120. The new contract that Ahmad got was 120. Lenny Yoro is 115. Xerxes was 105. So clearly there is a desire to implement a new wage structure. I think max that Cunha and Mbeumo would be looking for, would be around, I think, a 200 max, most likely less. The reality is, with the people that are leaving this summer, Marcus Rashford, one of the highest paid players at the club, over £300,000 a week, there is going to be wages to be going around there. In addition to that, like I said, they are going to be moving on Sancho. He's on 250. Christian Eriksen is on 150. So that's going to be obviously going down. Lindelof was on 120. That's freed up that. Then you get into possible sales of people like Højlund. Højlund's on 85. The Anthony, he was on around 150-ish, wasn't it? 150, close to 200. And again, Anthony's contract's been disputed a bunch of times. He's on 250, then it's actually 200. Now, actually, it's probably on around 150. So no one really knows these kind of salary discussions. And maybe it's because we're in the Manchester United sphere of things that maybe we see these reports more often than not. But I don't know. I don't see a lot of these reports or discussions about these other signings that these other clubs are making. Have we seen a report suggesting what Reinders is going to be on at Manchester City? What contract Ryan Cherky is going to be on at Manchester City? Have we heard what Florian Wirtz is going to be making at Liverpool? Can anyone really say that? No. Are they outwardly out? Do we hear about them that much? Not really. They're not. So it's easy, isn't it? Just go, yes, because 250. Because that must be the only reason. That must be what the only reason. Yes, it must be that. That must be the only reason. And as far as why the Man United are able to do these kind of signings and what have you, because I've seen a lot of talk about this as well, going, how this is the problem. This is the problem. It's because PSR's stupid. PSR is stupid. PSR this, PSR that. And it doesn't take into account revenue, doesn't take into all of this stuff. A story from the Athletic reporting this morning that actually Sir Jim Ratcliffe's cash injection actually skyrocketed Manchester United's spending power in the market. Such a really interesting report about how basically Manchester United are staying PSR compliant. And it's because of this cash injection from Ratcliffe. It's an article written by Mark Critchley and Chris Weatherspoon. Many have asked the question, given that they just posted their lowest top flight finish since 1974, failed to qualify for Europe, and according to part owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe in March, could have gone bust by Christmas if not for cost-cutting measures, how are United not in danger of breaching the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules? United are on the record regarding their concerns over compliance with PSR introduced in 2015 in an event to prevent clubs overspending and encountering financial difficulty. They talk about, again, saying they were in danger, blah, blah, blah. But there was not quite the same sense of jeopardy upon the release of the club's latest full-year financial results in September, when Chief Executive Omar Barada said United remained committed to and in compliance with both the Premier League and UEFA's financial sustainability regulations. In the end, Barada's confidence was well placed, and United were not charged by the Premier League with breaching 23 to 24 PSR. Then, in the very same, he spoke about that. Jim Ratcliffe said to BBC, "We are not going to breach PSR. So are United at risk or not? The picture, as ever, is complicated, but the answer may lie in the consolidated group accounts of a little reported company called Red Football Limited." Now, this is basically, it says how they are staying compliant, blah, blah, blah. But basically, the story is that Jim Ratcliffe, with his cash injection, it pushed Manchester United way, way, way out of the of worries about when it comes to PSR effectively. So yes, Manchester United are not in danger. They're not in risk as of right now. But to be fair, they probably might. When Jim Ratcliffe does it in 6 months, be like, it's will be a risk. That's what it is. Will be a risk. That's what it is. But I tell you what, if you want to get the best insight for Manchester United's PSR problems and just actual financial problems, Flex did an interview with Kieran Maguire a couple of months ago here on the channel, and he explains it all. Why Manchester United's biggest problem when it comes to obviously the debt, paying interest on said debt. We've never even touched the debt. We've only paid interest. And he also said that the biggest sort of difference point as well is that Manchester United, when it comes to the business that they've done in the transfer market over the last decade plus, is you look at all of these other clubs like Liverpool, like City, like Arsenal, like a lot of them, which is they've been able to sell effectively. Which has managed to offset their PSR. Manchester United, we've been shocking, absolutely shocking at selling players for profit or just selling in general. We can't do it. And that's the real crux of it. And the reason we've been unable to do it is because the wages that we have given out, which again is why people talk about wages when they come to United, have been too high. So because they've been too high, we spend all this money on wages, and also we can't sell players. So we find ourselves in this sort of financial transfer black hole that we can't get out of. When you sell Dan James and he's one of your highest exits ever, bit of an issue, isn't it? Bit of a problem. So yeah, that's part of the reason why. So that's why this summer, I guess they have budgeted to be able to spend a lot, because they're counting on, okay, Rashford, it's going. They're counting on, Garnacho probably going, Sancho going, Anthony going, etc., etc., etc. And a couple of those players are homegrown. Even as Mustafa mentions there in the chat, McTominay last year when we sold him, that was one of our highest exits we've ever had, and that was a pure profit one. So that's that. And how much in the end was it that McTominay went for to Napoli? McTominay transfer fee, around 25 million. Around 25 million. It's mad. Obviously, there are a couple higher. There's like the Ronaldo one to Real Madrid, but that was in 2009. There's the Lukaku one to Inter Milan. And then you get into, then you get into 25 million here, 25 for that, 20 for that. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So yes, that's the latest when it comes to Mbeumo. Of course, we get any more details on this second bids or what have you, we'll let you know in a future video. So be sure to subscribe. As you can see in the top right-hand corner, we're just 2 away from 194,650. And that would mean 350 to go into 195,000. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. How many likes are we currently at the moment? We've got nearly 2K watching, folks, this morning, which is great on a Thursday morning for a solo-in show. So if you haven't already, click that like button. We're already over 500 likes. I tell you what, would be amazing. The last show I did with Flex 2 days ago, because I did one with Joe Blackman yesterday. Big up, Joe. Show some love to him on Cage's Reckless Sport and his own channel. But 2 days ago, we did the show with Flex in the morning, and I think we got live like 920 likes, something like that, 920, 930, but we didn't get to 1K likes live. Obviously, after the fact, we did. But let's see if we can do it today on a solo-in show, and maybe just maybe then I can go to Flex. Look. All this talk about the sort of transfers and all this talk about not getting a trophy and not getting the belt. Look, this morning, so low, and we did 1K likes. Maybe. Because Flex is saying at this point, he's going, look, you're just going to have to buy the belt yourself, mate. You can't rely on Man United to win a trophy. Even I said, look, we did win a trophy in Hong Kong. Won in Hong Kong. So why couldn't I get the belt then? I don't know. Maybe, but that will up my leverage in the negotiating with Fleck. So if you haven't already, click that like button. Yeah, click that like button. See if we can get to 1K likes. So yes, that's the latest on Bryan Mbeumo. Let's move on and talk about, since we're talking transfers, this is, I guess, perfect to continue talking about transfers, because who is going to be running point on the transfers this summer? Well, it's not going to be Sir Dave Brailsford. Sir Dave Brailsford isn't going to be involved that much with Manchester United anymore, because Brailsford has taken a step back from his position at Manchester United. There's been a shake-up at Old Trafford and Carrington, courtesy of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos. Yet another shake-up in the leadership structure at Manchester United, because Brailsford has taken a step back, and Jason Wilcox has continued to ascend the ranks at Manchester United, because the once technical director is now the director of football at the club. Now, really, he's been doing this role ever since Dan Ashworth was fired late last year. Of course, he was the sporting director at Manchester United, and we heard after his departure, Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada, they were sort of dividing the workload between them, and There were some other people they were going to get in, and they weren't going to necessarily replace a sporting director with a sporting director. Instead, the technical director was going to take on more responsibility, and now he's becoming the director of football. And there's many different ways to look at this. Is it just a case of he was doing the job anyway? It's just a formality. It's just a change of title. Is there a concern that, well, what is his experience to be a director of football? Previously, as the technical director, that makes sense. His expertise is with academy football. At Manchester City, he did a fantastic job as the academy director, bringing through a multitude of young players that have gone on to be very successful. When he left Manchester City, he was director of football at Southampton, but that was a Southampton that was in the Championship, and he oversaw some of that, got them back into the Premier League, and maybe was a little bit involved in the planning of one of the worst Premier League sides of all time. Now he's in the hot seat for the director of football at Manchester United. Is that a concern for you? Others would say, well, judging based on what he's done so far at Manchester United, and so far in this transfer window, he's moved very, very quickly. Cunha, done. Mbeumo, nearly done. At least one bid's going in. Hopefully that'll be wrapped up in the next week or so before the window shuts again. So is he moving quickly enough to say, actually, he's doing a good job at the moment, so he should continue to be supported? Or is it more concerns because, yet again, very early on into their tenure at Manchester United, Ineos are actually admitting they've made more mistakes. Dan Ashworth was a mistake. Jason Wilcox came in as a technical director. That was a mistake. He should have been director of football. We got the organization wrong. Is that a concern? And as far as Sir Dave Brailsford, was that a mistake too? Getting someone in that's primarily known with cycling, marginal gains, and then having a massive drop-off in your worst Premier League season ever. Was that a mistake? Are these more mistakes, or are they learning from their mistakes? That's the part of it. So let me know your thoughts about this one. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are you going to wait and see? Are you kind of just shrugging your shoulders at this point, going, what a mess? What do you think of this shake-up? Another one at Manchester United. Let's get in to basically all the reporting on this, because this is really interesting stuff. So this comes from The Athletic, comes from Laurie Whitwell and Mark Critchley, saying, so Dave Brailsford is relinquishing his day-to-day role at Manchester United and returning to act as Director of Sport for Ineos in a major recalibration of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's Old Trafford executive. The move coincides with Jason Wilcox being named United's Director of Football, a position of increased seniority from the technical director title he initially arrived with in April of 2024. Continues by saying Brailsford, 61, has been a significant figure at United since Ratcliffe's stake was confirmed on Christmas Eve 2023, watching Aston Villa's Boxing Day visit to Old Trafford from the director's box and continuing to attend games regularly. He was appointed to United's football club board upon completion of the deal alongside former manager Sir Alex Ferguson and ex-chief executive David Gill. He has been a constant presence throughout the due diligence stage of the investment process and was prominent at Carrington once Ratcliffe had the keys to the club, basing himself in Manchester. Brailsford was across the training ground refurbishment, involved in the decisions on Erik ten Hag, and had input on key appointments including Omar Barada as chief executive and Ruben Amorim as head coach, as well as performance staff. He also said Brailsford led United's Mission 21 drive, targeting a 21st league title, and Mission 1 to win a first Women's Super League as part of Project 150. Look at all of these buzzwords, folks. Programmed to mark the 150th anniversary in 2028. He became less visible in recent weeks, although that can partially be attributed to him becoming a father last year and spending more time in Monaco. Brailsford was seen at the Europa League final in Bilbao, however. Finally, it says, now, with a new executive team led by Barada in place and Wilcox assuming greater authority for United's sporting department being promoted to Director of Football, Brailsford is stepping back to give them space. He retains his place on the board and will still be on hand to advise on strategic performance matters. Assembling a revamped structure at United was his remit on joining, and this has now happened. Brailsford is expected to increase his support to the Ineos Grenadiers, the cycling team he was team principal of until January 2024, shortly after Ratcliffe agreed to purchase a minority stake in United, as they will return to Tour de France winning level with the arrival of a new partner. Ben Jacobs kind of also echoing what's really been reported on all of this as well, saying the following, saying Jason Wilcox has been promoted to Manchester United's Director of Football, so Dave Brailsford has stepped back from his day-to-day role at the club and will focus instead on Ineos duties. It was actually first reported, hat tip here to Matt Lawson from The Times, Manchester United now view their leadership structure as firmly in place. Omar Barada as CEO, Wilcox as Director of Football, and Mark Armstrong leading the club's commercial arm as Chief Business Officer. I've got a few different thoughts and theories on this one, and I'm really interested to know what you guys think. When I saw this yesterday, I did, first of all, I've always been concerned and worried about Sir Dave Brailsford's role at Manchester United. That's always worried me, because he's a cycling guy. And historically, I know that there are principles that can go across sport, that can be cross-sport principles and ideologies, and largely they're due to, like, work ethic, or there can be best practices you can take across from certain training sort of levels and stuff like that, and certain training methods. In cycling, we do it this way, and we do this, and we do that. All right, cool. Adapt that, and well, actually, this is what really helped us when we were doing stuff for the Olympics. All right, cool. But the overarching thing is they're different sports. They're different sports. And I know that his thing was maybe more on putting a structure together, and they're saying that, well, his job was really to put an infrastructure together, and now that he's done that, he's stepping back. But at the same time, it kind of are talking out both sides of their mouth here, because it's like, well, it was about putting a leadership structure together. Okay, fine, but he would still talk on performance matters, and he made key decisions on Erik ten Hag and on Ruben Amorim. But that's football-related matters. I mean, that's as football as it gets. Person who picks the team, person who's picking the team, that's pretty in the weeds, isn't it? That's not just, oh, he'd be a good executive, or what's his experience here, and oh, he'd be good on transfers. Going, well, when you're talking about coaches, you're talking about what's their playing style, and you're talking about how do they fit with the players that we've got, and how does it match how we want to play moving forward. That's football. I mean, that's pitch matter stuff. So I always was uncomfortable in that, because when you look at other big clubs and how they're operating and who's making critical decisions at the club, they've got an extensive background of footballing success. And you go, oh, he's the guy from doing cycling, and he's got these buzzword projects, Project 21 and Project 1 and Mission 150. And I go, fuck all these buzzwords. Show something, There's nothing worse. Maybe you haven't experienced this, but I think a lot of people have. Everyone's been in that workplace, or a lot of people, have been in that workplace where you look around you and you go, this is awful. This is not being run properly. And then when you have the big town hall meeting, or you have the meeting where everyone's there, and then the big cheese gets up there, or one of the big cheese gets up there, and they just start talking buzzwords, and they go, it's about synergy. It's about synergy, and it's about everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. And it's about, being collaborative. It's about being collaborative, having that synergy. And also, we want to add some rocket fuel to this situation. We want to add some rocket fuel, and we want to aim for the stars. We want to shoot for the stars. That's what we want to do for the future. That's where we're going. We feel we are going in a net positive direction. And then you get out and you go, they've just said nothing. They've just said nothing. This is crap. This is rubbish. So what are we doing? I don't know what we're doing. What are we actually doing? And there's a lot of talk, not a lot of action with United over the last 12 to 18 months. And I think him taking a step back. Okay, take a step back. You put a structure together. You've done your bit. Done. Okay, cool. No worries. Yeah, it's fine. Focus on what you're good at. Cycling. Go back to the cycling team. That's where you've made your name. It's kind of laughable, really, to be talking about marginal gains when we've had our worst season, worst Premier League season ever. You can't really talk. I mean, marginal gains is like being second and struggling to get over the line. How'd you get over the line? How'd you really do that? And then, to get over that line, you tweak something a little bit, and then then you get over the line. You go, well, that's marginal. That was the small increments that got us there. That was the small increments that got us just over the line. Yeah, okay, I get that. But marginal gains isn't going from 8th to 15th, is it? That's I don't even know what's the severe opposite of that. So Brailsford taking a step back, that is a good thing. Is it maybe an admission of another mistake by Ineos? Perhaps. But at this stage, it's like, well, at least they're doing something about it, I suppose. I mean, that's me trying to look at it from a positive situation. The negative is it's yet another mistake. The positive is they've realized it's a mistake, but that doesn't really undo the damage, does it? That doesn't undo the damage on that one. Now, as far as the Wilcox stuff, the Wilcox stuff, I look at, clearly he is well liked within Ineos since day dot. I mean, he was the first executive through the door, wasn't he? Jason Wilcox was the first guy through the door. It went Wilcox, then it went Parada, then it went Ashworth. And Wilcox was the first through the door. And since day dot, we have heard that Ineos really like him. They clearly really rate him. I think it was Sir Jim said, well, we're using Jason's eyes. We've got Jason. We don't have a data department, so we're using Jason's eyes, and I trust Jason's eyes on things and this, that, and the other. Is there a concern about experience in this specific role? Yes, absolutely. How can there not be? Because he doesn't have experience being a director of football at a club the size of Manchester United. He just doesn't. Now, he's got obviously fantastic experience in academy football. And we've actually, I think, made really good strides in some sort of academy signings and young, promising signings over the last 12 months, which has coincided with Jason Wilcox being around. Siku Kone, that's a Wilcox one. And Christopher Vavell. Chido, that's a Wilcox one. And Vavell. Aidan Heaven, that's a Wilcox one. And Vavell. So those signings that we're talking about there, and we'll wait and see how good Diego Leon is or anyone like that. Those younger signings that are, and there was a couple more as well, those younger signings that are right on the periphery, and we're going to tell you what, a couple of years, or maybe in a year's time, someone like an Aidan Heaven, I actually went straight into the team, and he's not doing too bad. That's exciting. That's exciting. So he knows what he's doing with that. And using his expertise and knowledge of all of those different academies and that vast knowledge of all of those different young players that are ready to make the step up or are going to be something in a couple of years, absolutely utilize him for that. And they have. And that's been successful for United. But with what we need for this season moving forward, we need ready to go right now, and also still ready to develop. And this is when the positive side of it comes in. You go, well, actually, with this, the positive can be is, well, if he's running point on this transfer window, then actually, if he's running point, Cunha's through the door. And Mbeumo, that one, we know that one's going to happen. So actually, so far, he's done all right. Now, transfers are not just about incomings, they're about outgoings as well. So we'll see what happens this summer. I think in the same way, when it came to people like John Murto and when it came to people that were in charge last summer, which was, a Dan Ashworth-esque summer, he wasn't involved in all of it, but involved in the majority of it, they'll get judged on those summer windows. And if we know that this is a Jason Wilcox summer, then he'll be judged exactly the same on it. Would there be reservations about experience? Yes. But based on what he's doing at the moment, him and his team are doing at the moment, Cunha, tick, Mbeumo, tick-ish. Then we get into, if they pulled off a striker, it's not going to be Victor Osimhen, he's going to Saudi. But with this, if they pulled off Gyökeres, or they pulled off getting a striker, a midfielder and a goalkeeper, then you would go, actually, you know what? Fair play. Fair play. He's done well, and with the signing, with what they're doing at the moment, give them the benefit of the doubt. See what happens with it. So there's again positives and negatives to look at. I think when it comes to this, A couple of super chats here. Shahil says, when they start talking about the wages, it gets on my nerves, man. I used to watch some of these channels as an international fan. So glad I stopped watching. Super Arch says, no team has interest in Dallo yet. He needs to go. Oh, window's still early. Christian says, how is Wilcox best in class director of football? Ineos is dead. And Sav says, Owen's daily negative Nancy moments. I don't know if it's negative Nancy. I think actually it's just looking at both. I think it's looking at both sides of the argument there, because I think they're both very, very actually valid. You know, I think that if you've got reservations about another shake-up at United and Wilcox being the director of football, I think you'd be right to have those reservations, because you'd be looking at, as people said there, best in class. Where's the best in class element of that? But then I think if you've got optimism about it as well, I think that's valid too, because you would say, well, football, like sometimes in life, is a what have you done for me lately kind of sport. And especially in that position in transfers, what have you done for me lately in terms of transfers? You can go, well, Mateus Cunha day one and Brian Mbeumo hopefully done by the end of the window. That's pretty positive, isn't it? That's not bad. And the other positives that I mentioned would be an admission of mistakes, but recognizing the mistakes and fixing them. Sometimes people can be too proud when they know they've made a mistake. And this is kind of the worst scenario, is when you know you've made a mistake, but you just go, well, that's going to be embarrassing. If I have to fix that, I've got to publicly admit I'm wrong. So I don't know if I'll do that. We'll just keep it as is. We'll keep it as is. No, you go, we can't afford to do that. Got to change it. Got to change it. That was wrong. Fix it. Learn. We're not going to do that again. And really, has anything changed? You could go, well, Wilcox is, like I said before, Wilcox has been doing this role ever since Dan Ashworth left. It's just a change in title that makes it official, but he's been doing it anyway because he's been doing well. So, you know, I think there's merit in being skeptical, but there's also merit in being positive about it, I think. Uncle says, how do you know this move was a mistake and not planned? Well, because initially that's not what he was hired to do, was it? I mean, that's the other part of it. The initial structure was, we heard the same thing last year, didn't we? Last year we heard the structure's in place now, it's sorted, locked in. Fast forward a year later, the structure changed. And like Braceway is not going to be involved now. And Wilcox has got a different title now. So there clearly had to be, you know, resorting, because look at what happened. And, you know, Dan Ashworth was there for a couple of months. You know, that was not the plan. But as I mentioned, the positive can absolutely be, well, he's been doing this anyway. It's just changing his title. It's just changing the title. That's what he's been doing, you know. So yeah, that's what it is. Tish says it's not a mistake if you adapt. You're nitpicking, Owen. But the thing is, this is the problem, Tish. Yeah, and this is where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Because if you just as a host, I think it's my responsibility to not only share my opinion, but also look at the different perspectives and point of views. If I came on here this morning and said, this is perfect, this is great, this was always the plan, Ineos know exactly what they're doing. First of all, that's something that I wouldn't believe. Secondly, that's when you get the tinfoil hats. It's very obvious to see who's being paid by Ineos this morning, isn't it? Very, very obvious to see what's going on with that. That's very obvious, very obvious. Now, if I go here on the other side of it and be like, this is all just bullshit. This is all just rubbish. Ineos again, this is why we're going to get relegated this summer. Look at this. It's just chaos going on. And it's this, that, and the other. People are like, oh, you're not giving them a chance. You're not giving them a chance. So what's the appropriate thing to do? The appropriate thing to do is people will have reservations. This is why. And some of those are justified. Some people will feel optimistic. This is why. And I tell you what, those things why are actually justified. How I feel is I'll adopt a wait and see. So far, what I've seen right now in this window, which is open for 5 days, I can say that we're doing good business. You know, we're doing good business. And nothing's set in stone. Things happen, things change. Everyone's, you know, started a role. And then, well, actually, a few months in, I kind of the role wasn't actually that defined, and I went to this, and that's what it was, and that kind of changed. And I go, oh, okay. So was it necessarily a mistake to bring you in for that? Well, I wasn't really doing anything for a lot of months, and then, but how it ended up was the right way. So yeah, all of those different things. I think again, but this is the point. This is the point. It's never. All of these things are never cut and dry. You know, you can make mistakes while also adapting and getting to a point that was better than what you intended. It's like taking a couple of steps backwards to go 3 steps forwards. But sometimes people don't, you know, this nuance. I'm talking about nuance again. Yes. How many likes have we ended up at? We are at 758 likes. We still got over 1,700 people watching, which is great. If you haven't already, click the like button. See if we can get to at least 800. At least 800. At least 800 before we wrap things up. There will be What the Devil today. On top of that, we'll probably have something else, because like I said, I think this Mbeumo stuff, there's going to be more that comes to it. Probably another bid. That is funny, isn't it? Actually, you know, with the earlier on, it does go to show, isn't it, that I think after the season we've had, there is such a desire and a want, and I get it, for everything to be fixed and everything to be positive. Like earlier on in the show, I'm like, we'll probably sign Mbeumo. That'll be announced in the next 5 days. Like 5 days is my prediction. It's not inside source, it's just prediction. And it's don't be so negative. don't be so negative. Don't be so negative about Ineos. I mean, yeah, okay. But we're looking forward. We're feeling positive. Like I said, we'll have What the Devil coming up later today. On top of that, we'll probably have something else at some point. We'll have something at some point coming up regarding transfers as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the Football Flex as well. There's daily videos coming up there, going up there, and live streams. There'll be coverage of the Club World Cup on that channel. This weekend on my channel, I'll be live on Saturday. Saturday's gonna be a busy day. Saturday's gonna be a very busy day. I'm gonna have like 3 live streams on my channel. I'm gonna have AAA WWE Worlds Collide. Then I'm going to have Money in the Bank, a watch along and a post show. So if you haven't already, go over to there, give it a subscribe, and you can join me on Saturday as we watch the Graps. Anyway, I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you again later on with more updates on transfer stuff. I'm out of here. Peace.